I've spoken a lot of late about Manchester United not having the squad capable physically of dealing with the rigors of modern football and how I think their transfer strategy is changing in order to combat that. And as I speak on this Friday afternoon, 31st of January, with a few days left of the January transfer window, it looks like Manchester United are putting plans in place not only this month, but into next summer's transfer window in order to make that big change and get a squad that is capable of dealing with the rigors of modern football. Geovany Quenda and Patrick Dorgu, potentially the two long-term answers in the two wing-back positions. We will wait and see. Quenda, we're not sure yet, but there has been some news today that United are targeting him from Sporting in a 40 million euro deal ahead of the summer transfer window. They can't actually sign him yet because he's 17 years old. And when he's 18, he can turn up and end up playing for United if they can strike a deal. Certainly has the quality to do it, given his exploits under Ruben Amorim at Sporting in the past. He played a role in tearing apart Manchester City in the Champions League in Ruben Amorim's last game before he joined United. And on the other side, Patrick Dorgu, his deal should be tied up and his medical should be done over the course of the weekend, and he should be available from around next week to be able to get into first-team matters at United. But I'll be talking about those two players. I'll be talking about Mathys Tel as well, and I'll be talking a little bit about Manchester United and how this squad is shaping up for the future in the long term in order to get to grips with how to play football the Ruben Amorim way. It requires a lot of running, it requires technicality and technical ability, and it requires a whole lot of effort. And I think the players that United are looking to sign have a lot of the requirements for Ruben Amorim's team, but not only for that, but to deal with the rigors of modern football and deal with European football as well. This is the Promised Land podcast with me, Scott Saunders, talking all things Manchester United. I'm on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment below as well, and let me know what you think of the latest news. Also, I'm on Apple and Spotify for the audio episodes as well. Please subscribe to those because sometimes, like I did on Thursday night after the 2-0 win over FCSB, sometimes I'll drop a quick audio update and a quick audio reflection on what I've seen when it gets a little bit too late, when things get dark, and when I just want to be able to get something out there quicker. So if you'd like more from me, please subscribe on there as well, because there might be some episodes on audio which crop up, which don't come out on YouTube. But yes, today I'll be talking about those two players and just the squad on the whole. I've got a big list of players here, which I'm squaring up, which really reflects how United are accumulating a group of younger players who they hope will be able to take them forward, for the next 10 years or something like that. We'll see. Not all of them will make it. Some of them will, hopefully. But we will see how that goes. Also, as well, follow me on social media at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And I'm also on Blue Sky as well. The link is in the description if that is your preferred social platform. Anyway, right. So we've got Geovany Quenda, who it was reports on Friday morning about United looking at potentially going in for him in the summer. And even some reports from Ebola, I think it was, one of the Portuguese news sources. It seemed as though United were getting close or had essentially struck a deal in order to sign him for around 60 million euros or somewhere in that territory. And, if you think back to the days of United pursuing Bruno Fernandes and, lots of other links with Portuguese players in the past, sometimes not everything is correct. Sometimes things are fabricated a little bit. And in Bruno's case, a few years ago, it was, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And then it's happening, and then it wasn't happening, and then eventually it did. But, sometimes these reports that come out of Portugal can be a little bit over, OTT, let's just say, and maybe a little bit more is made out of it than it actually is the case. But when you get a double down from probably the best sports journalist in the country, the best football journalist in the country, David Ornstein, confirming that United were looking at striking a deal for this lad, 17 years old, turning 18 in the next few months, for 40 million-ish euros. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than what was quoted a few hours earlier from the Portuguese reports. And there's a couple of things that I'm taking out of this. Let me talk about the price to start with. Whenever do United look at maybe in Dorgu's case as well, you can probably look at the fees that were quoted and how United took their time in order to negotiate, but ended up getting a better deal, much less valuable than I think Lecce were hoping for in the first place. How many times have United gone and looked at a promising young player and then been quoted 80 million? You know, that United tax has always been there. And I think in this case, and in maybe Dorgu's case, I think maybe there's evidence of a shift in how United negotiate to suggest that United tax is starting to get knocked off. And they proved with Everton tried to pull it with Jared Branthwaite last year, and United obviously didn't bite 70, 80 million quid. And United said, no, that's too much for us. We're not going to do it. And they didn't do the deal. And have moved on to go in to sign other players. Lenny Yoro, maybe they overpaid for him a little tiny bit, but there's promise in there with Lenny Yoro, and they really believe in him for the future. In Geovany Quenda's case, 40 million euros for a player who looks pretty talented and does, given we've seen experience of it already, does all of the things that Ruben Amorim wants in a modern wingback. Given we have seen him do that, can he take the step up to the Premier League? We'll wait and see. And obviously, there's a big risk with players of that age. Are they able to do it, and are they able to take it on, especially dealing with the pressure that comes with playing for Manchester United? We'll wait and see. But there's promise in this. I think most people will look at it and like the price given the quality that he's displayed. I mentioned he's already torn apart Manchester City in the Champions League. And usually United get quoted much higher figures than this. So it's interesting as well to see that price. And it's also interesting to see that United are planning ahead. Whenever do you get that? Really? Quenda is, a promising player who Ruben Amorim has helped develop and bring him to the point that he's at in his career in the first place. And the fact that United are now putting plans in place in order to sign him straight off, maybe if you're looking at taking a negative stance on this, they're going and raiding the manager's former club for the same players. So it's Ten Hag all over again. Maybe there's a little bit of that in it, but at the same time, this isn't overpaying, I don't think, given what I've seen of him so far and the promise that he seems to have. And I think those two positions, left wing back and right wing back, are quite specialist, and you really need players who are physically and technically capable of playing in that position, have the engine to get up and down all day long. And in Dorgu and in Quenda, it seems like they have the fundamentals in order to be able to develop, and it's going to take some time, obviously, to get the best out of them. But we'll see. If you don't know too much about Quenda, you're not alone, really, but he has a lot of attributes about him which makes him seem like a perfect fit for the system that Ruben Amorim's trying to build. What he is a winger or a more advanced player who's been essentially converted into a wingback, can play in a multitude of positions. I think there's 4 positions on the pitch that he's able to play in if United want to play him there. So not only, as I mentioned with the Dorgu transfer a few weeks ago, United are looking at players who can not only fit into the Amorim system, but also covering themselves off with players who, I suppose, have proven themselves in other positions as well. So maybe if it doesn't go right with Amorim for whatever reason, I'm not saying that it won't, or that it's a sure thing or whatever, United need to go and buy players who are not specific to the manager that they have and his system, to the point where if it goes wrong with the manager, they have nothing left to do with the players but to shift them on for, ironically, or probably a loss, which they've done in Anthony's case. So I think Quenda is left-footed, a physically able and technically pretty good player to have on that option and that side. And I think if we all haven't seen loads of him, really, and I'm not going to pretend and lie and say that I'm a massive expert on him, because I'm not, and there's plenty more people who will be able to give you a much better breakdown of what he's like than I will. But from what I've seen of him, he is able to beat his man in one-on-one situations, pretty good dribbler, left-footed, but is able to carry with his right foot as well, and has, like I say, that engine to get up and down. And I think I spoke about Dorgu a number of times, right, on recent episodes of this podcast. Please go and subscribe on all the major podcast platforms and on YouTube as well if you haven't done so already, and you like what you're seeing or what you're hearing. It's really interesting to me that left wing back and right wing back are the two positions where United look like they've committed money straight away. It seems like those two positions are absolutely imperative to making Ruben Amorim's system work. And they've realized that straight away. And that is exactly where they're putting the money straight away. Now, in Dorgu's case, it looks like medical on Saturday. Fingers crossed everything goes okay and he'll be in the club from next week in order to, get in with the team in the next few weeks and make a difference on that left side, because I think the left side is a bit more of a problem than the right. But what Amorim favoured during his time at Sporting was a left wing back that is essentially a winger who is able to go down the outside and stretch the pitch, which is what, from what I've seen of Dorgu and from what I understand about him, is exactly the kind of profile of player that I think fits that same role. Whereas on the other side, he's opted, and it has been Quenda. Has been one of the options in that position. He likes maybe an inverted player in that position, so a left-footed player in that position who is able to not only go down the flank, but also cut inside as well. And I think, given Quenda has come through at Sporting, I think he played for Benfica previously as well. He has found his place under Amorim. He understands his system, and he obviously ticks a lot of boxes in terms of everything I've mentioned already. But having the ability to, and then the understanding of playing in that system should mean that if he does arrive, then he's an option that you can use straight away. And he has a hell of a long career ahead of him. In both of these players' cases, obviously, I think they're quite raw and they do need to be worked on a little bit, but that's going to be the same case with any young player United sign. But it's really interesting that these two positions on the left wing and the right wing, wing backs, have been the positions of priority and where United have looked to commit their money straight off. Now, I think, and I spoke about it on the episode that I did on Thursday night, which is audio only. Please go subscribe. I keep saying that, actually. Please go and subscribe. But please do. Those positions are going to be so imperative to transforming the Manchester United that you see under Ruben Amorim. So imperative and so important because they are the players that make it a back five or a front five. And we've seen in recent weeks the options that United have in those wing-back positions at the moment are fullbacks generally, or Ahmad, who is maybe another contender to play in this position long-term, but there's a decision to be made on him about what his best position is. And I personally prefer to see him in the 10. But the other options that he has just aren't really fit for purpose for what he wants to do. And I'm not saying that these players are particularly bad players or whatever, but this system, there's some specialists in it, but I think if you're looking at specialist positions, especially, and I think the two wing back positions are the main ones and the main areas of priority, because you've got players who are essentially fullbacks trying to do a wing back's job, and they're very, very, although they kind of occupy the same areas of the pitch a lot of the time, they're completely different positions, require completely different skills, and you've got to be really well rounded in order to excel in that position. You got to have the attacking instincts, really, that a lot of fullbacks don't really have. More akin to, let's say, a winger. And Ruben Amorim has tended to favour wingers in these positions during his time with Sporting. I think these positions really need some concentration because you can see there's certain matches that United have played over the past few weeks under Ruben Amorim where you've seen specifically the instances where these players are not, or these fullbacks are not contributing or in the right positions to add an extra layer in attack and add extra width as well. Width is really, really imperative and important. But there's a couple of games that I've thought of, and maybe Thursday night's game is one of the examples of where United have got it right with, even though the options that they've got in those positions aren't the right ones. Now, I'll take Ahmad out of this because we know that he can carry the ball and we know that he's really, really good and technically probably able to do that role, even though we maybe prefer him to play in the 10. There's that game against FCSB, and the Liverpool game is one I remember as well, of seeing a different Diogo Dalot specifically to what I've been used to. It seemed like the instruction during that game, I don't know if you remember it, but it happened really early on. it seemed like the instruction in that game was specifically for Diogo Dalot to go down the wide side of Trent Alexander-Arnold and get to the byline and try and beat his man on the outside. And Dalot, typically, when he's been playing in that left wing-back position, he's right-footed. He can use his left, and it's decent, but it's not natural to him. And what he wants to do is receive the ball and come back inside, or pass it back inside, or dribble inside. And that doesn't give, he steps in the way of other players, and it doesn't give United the required width and the ability to stretch the pitch that I think Amorim is looking for. And obviously as well, when defense turns into attack, they don't really have the physicality or the speed in order to get from one end to the other, plus the engine in order to keep it going for 90 minutes. So, they're quite specialist, and they require players that have bundles of energy. In Quenda's case, he is very able to draw opponents in, take a couple of touches and beat his man straight off. And I think we've seen that during his time with Sporting as well. He can carry the ball, so can Dorgu. And I think these two positions are going to be so important to unlocking the potential of other players as well. So I'm talking about maybe not the midfield position specifically, but they give so much. They give the right centre-back and the left centre-back an option to kind of pass the ball up the line. They give the two number 10s more space. Let's say United have transitioned from defence to attack, and then a number 10, let's take Kobbie Mainoo, because he played in there on Thursday night to really good levels. What he needs is that option. Let's say he's left 10. He needs that option past him and going down the line in order to create more space and take defenders away, so he can either use that pass or to cut inside or work a specific 1-2 with, say, another player or the other number 10 or the centre forward. I think it really unlocks a lot of space and ability to create for other players. And also, I'll take Rasmus Hojlund as this example as well, because I know people aren't really too high on him at the moment. Rasmus Hojlund has played with his back to goal quite a lot, and obviously when we see the ball bouncing off him and this kind of thing, it's not really the game that I think we want him to play and Ruben Amorim wants him to play. But what he should be thriving on is the kind of goals that Victor Gyökeres was scoring for Sporting. And I take the examples of 2 goals that United scored in the game against FCSB on Thursday night: cutbacks or crosses, low crosses, for a striker to just get on the end of. I named in that last episode that I did on audio the fact that there was one cross from Terrell Malacia, which was flashed across the 6-yard box, which Hojlund was 2 yards behind and didn't get on the end of. And there was another one in the second half from Garnacho where the ball kind of came backwards and Hojlund was too advanced in order to convert the chance. And I think that's just a case of wavelength, not knowing what your players are going to do. United haven't been doing that long enough for Hojlund to know that that's when he has to go. Whereas I think if United have answers at left wing back and right wing back, and the instruction is you get up the pitch and you find a way to get to the byline, create some space or find a space, and then cut it back to me and I can tap it in. Like, really, Hojlund should be getting in the positions where he's just taking 1 or 2 touches and having a shot. But we know that he doesn't shoot enough. You can see the numbers and the touches in opponents' boxes, that kind of thing. It's just not good enough. And I think, I'm not saying that Rasmus Hojlund is completely guilt-free here either, but, I just don't think that's clicking yet. And I think the wing-backs are really, really, really important to getting the best out of a striker in this system and in this team. And we've seen in Gyökeres' case that when that is right, when that's, working fluidly and that kind of thing, there's a lot of chances to be had there, and a lot of things to a lot of chances to gobble up and a lot of goals to be had. So look, we'll see. Maybe Hojlund isn't the right fit for that, but I think you'll start to see the best of him, or his best chance of succeeding, if he does have natural or players who are able to play in those wing-back positions feeding him chances, which are through cutbacks or through crosses. So let's see how that develops and let's see how that works. But I did want to talk a little bit about Mathys Tel as well. So, look, as I record this, I've seen that Daniel Levy has flown in to Munich. I think it's Munich, to try and wrap up a deal for this young French player from Bayern Munich. Let's see. I'm just Just checking now if there's any other advances on this. As it stands, not that I can see. But the fact that Tottenham have put a bid in of 60 odd million euros and their chairman is now having to go and try and convince this lad to join, while Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United are all looking at potentially making a move late in the window for him. It's interesting that Tottenham are going to these lengths and paying that much money to secure him when, to be honest, I think the best bet here is to look at this lad and think, can we do a loan with an option? Because I think he's very, very talented. I think he could really fit one of those two number 10 roles or the striker role quite well. Technical ability is really good. Obviously, he's another player who is 19 years old and is quite raw, but he has the close control and the dribbling ability, I think, to be able to offer a different option in those positions for United. We'll see how it goes, but I think this window has always been about sell to buy or make room in order to repurchase or to loan in. And maybe the likes of Tyrell Malacia, Casemiro, Marcus Rashford, and Alejandro Garnacho, still speculation over him. Maybe some of those players need to be moved out in order for United to make the move. Now, maybe Tottenham end up convincing him. I don't know. But to me, it's quite weird that Tottenham are going so heavy on such a big commitment in terms of price when Tel isn't sure yet, what exactly he wants to do, and he wants to wait it out and see what options come up to him. Maybe it works out, and maybe Tottenham do end up getting him, but I don't really see that being a priority position for Tottenham either at the moment. I'm not sure. They don't really have any problems scoring goals. So it's very interesting to see that, that's the move that Tottenham are making. But United are just there lurking in the background. And I think the approach that United are taking here, with not wanting to commit like a transfer fee straight off anyway, I think is the right approach. I think he's a very talented player. I think he can maybe offer something different in those number 10 positions. And if United can create some wiggle room, the suggestions have been that he actually is more open to United than anywhere else. It's just he's waiting to see what the club can do. So fingers crossed we see, something come about from this. But I don't really want United to go and, overextend themselves. I don't think there's any sign or suggestion that they will. I don't want them to go and overextend themselves in order to secure a deal for this lad. If it's not really right, I don't think they should force the issue. And given United are 12th in the league or whatever, and miles off Champions League qualification through the league position, I don't really think making unwise decisions this month are the best approach and the best move forward. I think it's much more take stock of what you got, try and get the best out of the players that you've got, work out the positions that you do need to buy, and then if the right offer comes along or the right deal comes along, loan to buy in this instance for Tel, then if you got the means to do it, and put longer term plans in place like they're doing for Quenda as well. So we will see what happens with Tel. Look, if Arsenal and Chelsea are in that mix and Tottenham are putting up big money to buy into in order to sell him, and it's down to the player, we'll wait and see to see if United end up winning that race with more of a standoffish approach. But the suggestions are, like I say, that maybe this is the move he wants. So look, at the end of the day, whoever gets him, I think they're getting a very talented player. Let's hope it's United, but I understand if United can't do it, then that's just so be it, and that's someone they'll have to miss out on. But the fact that United are looking at him as well, he's 19 years old, ties into this suggestion again that I started talking about at the start of the show and a few weeks ago, that United's transfer strategy is firmly focused on young players at the moment. Now, I've got a list of players here who maybe you could suggest United are starting to build around. Maybe I'm stretching it on some of these cases towards the end of this list. But let's say you're looking at Geovany Quenda, who is 17, set to turn 18 in the next few months. Garnacho, 22. Garnacho, age 20, 21 in July, I think he is. Ahmad, 22. Kobbie Mainoo, 19. Lenny Yoro, 19. Patrick Dorgu, 20. Rasmus Hojlund, 21, turns 22 early February. Toby Collier, who's come into the scene over the last few weeks and looks like a decent prospect for those midfield positions, 21 years old. And then how many players is that? Let's say Quenda does end up coming in. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players of around that age, 18 to 22. And I've not even included the likes of Diego Leon, Aidan Heaven, Sekou Kone, and players that could be coming through from the academy, plus players that United will be targeting later on as well. And I haven't even added Tel into that. So it really goes to show the difference in approach that United are making. And I think it's the smartest way to go. Obviously, you'll have to spend bigger on some players than others. Like in Yoro's case and in Hojlund's case, they did end up spending a little bit much. But Garnacho's come through the academy after being signed early from Atletico Madrid. They did spend big on Ahmad a few years ago, but I think he's justified that fee now and is worth a hell of a lot more than he was then. Kobbie Mainoo, academy player, and Toby Collier, academy player. Dorgu, I think, is more representative of the approach that United are taking recently in terms of putting up a decent number. We're looking at around 30 to 35 million euros in order to get the deal done. And maybe Quenda falls into that bracket as well. And all these are players who hopefully will find their place in the United team and the United system moving forward, who are of the right age profile in order to develop for a few years. And I don't want to suggest that this is something that United should be doing all the time, but Ruben Amorim has even said this. We need players from the academy to come through that we can either use in the first team or end up selling, And I think in the players' cases who are coming in as signings, if United can sign them for 30 or 40 million euros or whatever, develop them for 2-3 years, and then they end up looking like 80 million pound players, even if you don't sell them, that's the strategy. That should be the strategy that United move forward with, because that is the sensible strategy that will make your club sustainable moving forward. Not throw 350 grand a week at Casemiro or 350 grand a week at Marcus Rashford and give them massive contracts, which are very, very, very difficult. And United are finding that now very difficult to offload, because Marcus Rashford we haven't seen since the Manchester derby, I think it was, when he wasn't in that squad. And Casemiro is just there with Ruben Amorim essentially saying that he hasn't got the physical abilities to deal with the system that I want to play. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see the developments in the United squad. I think there's a massive shift in transfer strategy, and it's, for me, the right approach. But let me know in the comments what you think about that. If you're on YouTube, please get in the comments and get in touch with me on social media as well, at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And I'm on Blue Sky as well. The link is in the description. Now we'll see how the likes of Tyrell Malacia, Casemiro, and Marcus Rashford, we'll see what lies ahead in their immediate futures in the next few days, whether they end up leaving the club. But I think there was just one thing that I wanted to talk about before the end of the show today, which I think needs to be said, really. I think I've seen a few people say it, and I think I have to weigh in on it as well. The Alejandro Garnacho and his... Obviously, we know the story about United putting him up for potential sale if the right offer comes in. We know that Chelsea and Napoli have been quite interested in him. United have set an asking price on him, and they want that asking price hit if they are to sell him, but they will sell him if that asking price is hit. And if it's not, then we'll wait and see. But I think Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho were in the same case and the same boat a few weeks ago when they were both dropped from the Manchester derby teams. And the difference in the reaction between the two of them has been absolutely stark. And Garnacho, I thought, was really good in the Europa League game. Really changed the game, to be honest. The most recent game that he played. And I think that his development over the last few weeks has been an example of how you're supposed to take the criticism and your withdrawal from the squad and your withdrawal from the team. That's how you should do it. And he's got a lot of praise from Ruben Amorim as well in the last few games. He said in his press conference ahead of the game at the weekend, he's changed since I dropped him in everything, the approach and the way he recovers. And I think you can see that. And I think you can see when Amorim talks about playing wider or playing outside versus inside. I think there's instances where you see that Garnacho is starting to understand the system a bit more and is putting the work in order to find his way and find his fit in that team. And it's just really sad, to be honest, that Marcus Rashford is nowhere to be seen. And the same isn't happening for him. I've said about this, I said it on social media the other day, that if the attitude shifts, the door is open for Ruben Amorim to reintegrate him into the team. And we'll see if he ends up staying at the club, he might have no choice but to kind of get his head down and reintegrate. But are you doing it for the right reasons in that case? You know, if he has gone out and said that he wants a new challenge, maybe he just does want a new challenge, and that's the way that it has to be. But Marcus Rashford can't stay at this club for the next 6 months and stay in the same situation that he's in. He just can't do it. I'd be really surprised if that remains the case. But at the same time, Amorim has said, I'm not going to change. So it's with the player, and it's up to him if he wants to change and if he wants to put the changes in place for me to see that he is willing to get on board with what I'm saying. Then he has another chance. If he doesn't do that, then him and Casemiro, you're looking at over £600,000 a week in wages, which would be just being unused at the moment. And that is really, really disappointing to see. So look, I'm sure that I'll do another episode before the transfer window closes. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll do an episode after the Leicester Crystal Palace game as well, for United to react to that. But any kind of breaking news in the meantime, maybe I'll be back to talk about that. But look, we'll see what happens in the next few days of the transfer window. But just get in touch with me with anything that you think about what I've said today on the podcast. Is United's transfer strategy changing? Are you excited for the players that United are looking to sign? And the differences in personnel? Are you excited that it looks like, if all goes well, United might have 2 wing-backs, left wing-back and right wing-back, by the start of next season? We'll see if this Quenda deal ends up going through. But I think there's positive signs, and let's see what happens with Mathys Tel as well. But let me know in the comments what you think. Follow me on social media as well, at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And I'm on Blue Sky. The link is in the description too. So yeah, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple and on YouTube, and get in the comments and subscribe, like I say. Until next time, everyone, this has been the Promised Land podcast with me, Scott Saunders. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you soon.